Okay, welcome back to Empire of the Sun. And the last time we left, the Japanese, or I, had just moved my forces to attack the Philippines here in Manila, and the Air Force is there, and the Air Force here in Singapore. Okay, now what I did was I sent the log of my moves to my opponent. I created a log, saved it, and then sent it to him via Dropbox. He opened it, and then he resolved the combat. Now you might say, why didn't I resolve the combat myself? And the reason is that he needs to do something called a reaction. He needs to react to the uh, to the attack that I made. He needs to react to it. Okay, that's an important part of Empire of the Sun. There's a reaction part, and then there's an offensive part, and then there's a reaction part. Okay, so here we'll see how the reaction works. Okay, and the first part of doing a reaction is doing something called an intelligence roll. And so he has to see if he sees this attack coming, if he sees the attack coming in. And the way you do that is you roll a die and see if you hit the intelligence die roll. The intelligence die roll is actually on the card itself. If you look in the card, in this particular card, you can see here the intelligence die roll is up here. This OC5, EC7 up here, if you can see that. Okay, this is about as big as it's going to get. So OC5, EC7. This means that if the card had been used as an OC or as a ops card, that means we use just the ops value of the card, just 3, then it would be a 5. He would need to roll a 5 or less. Okay? Since we use it as an event card, he has to roll a 7 or less on a d10. Okay? Now, he actually gets even better than that. Actually, his odds are even better than that because I crossed into, um, I moved into the the ZOI, contested or uncontested, of one of his or several of his, couple of his air forces. In this case, you only need one. Okay, so in this particular case, I moved into the Azoi of the Far East Air Force and the Singapore unit down here, or the Singapore Malay unit down here. Okay, so because of that, he actually the this intelligence thing uh, actually goes to 9, and then the 9. You might say, well, on a die roll on a D10, where 0 is a 0, not a 10, there's no way to fail an intelligence die roll. If the threshold is a 9, you have to roll 9 or less. On D10, you can only roll a 9 or less. Well, yes, that's true, but in Empire of the Sun, a roll of 9 on an intelligence die roll is an auto fail no matter what happens. So the only way he's not going to see this coming is if he doesn't roll he rolls a 9. Otherwise it's he sees it coming and it's not a surprise attack. All right, so let's see what he rolls. Okay, so I'm going to step forward to his log file. Okay. Okay. So I forgot to do this, and he did it himself. Was he put little letters? See that letter, the A there, the green one? That means this is a battle hex. This is where I declared battle hex. Okay. Whenever there's a battle, it's called a battle hex. And what's important here in Empire of the Sun is if you play a card for its event, a military card for its event, you can declare more than one battle hex. And in this case, we've declared 2. We have a battle hex here in Singapore and one in Manila. And maybe he'll put one in Singapore as well. We'll see. Okay, he did put one in Singapore. You see, there's an A, there's a B. It shows you where all the battles are. Okay. All right. So let's see what he does here. All right. See what he does here. He says Intel EC7 -2 DRM. So he has a -2 dial modifier on in order to hit the EC the Intel dial, which is 7. He needs hit a 7 or less, and it's a -2 DRM. So essentially an 8 or a 9, but of course 9 is an auto fail. So he essentially has to get an 8 or less, which is a 90% chance of see this coming. Okay, so let's see what he did. He hits that. Okay, so he rolled a 1. Allies roll D10 equals 1. You can see that. but he rolled a 1, so he didn't see it coming, so it's not a surprise. Okay. Okay. He says intercept, which is the intelligence condition. Okay. By the way, so he says ENM. He says here, by the way, during the first part, during the previous log, he did something called ENM, which is our emergency naval movement, and I think I described really quickly to you last time was he moved some naval units around. Remember, he moved. I think he moved he moved this naval unit, the Kent from Guadalcanal. He moved it from Port Moresby, or not from Port Moresby, from Townsville. He moved it to Guadalcanal, and that's just something that he does. He's allowed to do as an allied player. It's just something that he does. It's in the rules. But he forgot to move his U.S. units, this U.S. Asia cruiser and this U.S. Asia DD. He forgot to move it, and he was apologetic. And he said, and I graciously let him, go ahead and make your E&M after the fact. So he does. He makes that move. So I'm going to let him do that. So he makes a movement, and that's something he should have done before the game started, but he forgot the U.S. Units, the U.S. units. So let's page that through. So this cruiser went from here to Biak, and he went from this USA Asia one went from Tarakan, and he moved it to Darwin. Okay, so he moved all the way down here. Okay, all right, interesting. I would have moved that to Batavia, but okay, that's cool. Okay, all right. So let's see if he does do the naval resolution. Okay, he says no reaction. Okay, what does that mean? That means he has decided not to interfere or send any additional units into the battle because he can, and maybe later we'll see that in another video how you can send forces to react in Empire of the Sun. Here he decides because the attack is so overwhelming that there's no point in sacrificing or losing any more units uh, to the Japanese onslaught, as it were. Right. So he resolves Battle A first, so he resolves here. Okay. So how this works, how combat works here in Empire of the Sun is interesting because what you do is you bring out you bring out the forces. In this case, I have this and this. Okay, attacking this, right? That's the combat. The way the combat works here is, if you're familiar with how Paths of Glory does its combat, then this should not be too. This hopefully will not be new to you. Okay. Um, uh, the Jap. All units have numbers on them. Combat units have numbers on them. The number on the extreme left is the offensive or the attack factor. The middle number is the defense factor, and this is the range. This is their normal range, and this is the extended range. And I think I showed that to you earlier when I did the movement for the air units. For a naval unit, you only have a attack factor and a defense factor. There's no range. Okay, so these guys have to sit right on the unit itself. Okay, so here you have same thing with the Fiat. You have an attack, a defense, and a range. Okay, all right, and you'll see his range. The extended range for him here is 4, and it's in the parentheses. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a parenthetical 4. And what that means is that if he were to use the extended range of this thing at any point during his movement, it can't go into combat. All right. So you can see right here that I have 20 factors attacking this um, um, air unit. Okay. The way this works is that normally I will get 40 hits. I will get 40 hits on this thing. Okay, but it might be modified slightly. If you look at the combat results table, okay, under air naval results table, if you roll a 0, 1, or 2, it says 1/4. Okay, round up if required. 35 is 1/2, 68 is 1, and 9 is 1. What does all this mean? It means that in order for me to, I roll a die, D10, or he rolls a die for me, D10, and I will be able to inflict anywhere from 10, that's 40, divided by 1/4 result, anywhere from 10 to 40 hits. Okay, if I roll an 8 or a 9, a 6 to a 9, it's a full result of 40 hits. Okay, And that will be enough to destroy this FF counter because it only has 10. It can only take 10. Okay. Normally, let's say this, you can see that this is already on its reduced side. Okay. So if I flip this, this is the full side. Notice that it's has a higher attack factor. The defense factor remains the same. But one thing you'll notice, it doesn't have that white stripe anymore because it used to have a white stripe. See that, the white stripe. So that means this is the weaker side. Okay. So that means it can only take 10 hits, and I can apply up to 40, anywhere from 10 to 40, and then this will either flip or die. If it's already flipped, it dies. Okay, so 40. So the worst I can do is do a 1/4 result. Do a 1/4 result. So the worst that can happen is that it's like 10 hits on this guy, and so he automatically dies. But he fires back on me. Okay, and you might say, well, look at that. He only has a 4. The best he can do is a 4, and I have the defense factor since it's 10. Defense factor is 14. There's no way you can create damage or you can damage me. Yes, you're right. He can, except if he rolls a 9. If he rolls a 9, a natural 9, you see here star. If the die roll was a 9 before any required modification, it's a natural 9. Then that side is achieved a critical hit in addition to receiving a 1 result. So what's a critical hit? A critical hit, and I'll explain to you more later, allows you to, in this case, damage an enemy unit regardless of how weak you are. So the only way he's going to be able to hit me and cause any damage to me is if he rolls a natural 9. So that's only a 10% chance of him damaging me. So let's try to see where what he does here, what the roll was for him. Okay, AP auto, which means that it's an auto kill, as I noticed, as I explained to you earlier, it's an auto kill. Okay, so JPCH, so he rolls tries to roll a critical hit. Okay, he rolls a 6, not a critical hit. Okay, so all well. So this guy dies. Okay, he removed that. Okay, so let's bring these back to where we found them. Okay, all right, so he's dead. Okay, okay, now he's going to resolve battle B. Same banana. So in this particular case, we have 12, we have 20, we have 16, and we have 22. And if you do some pretty fast math, that's 70 factors. That's 70 attacking 6, okay, or 9 in this particular case. So the worst I can do here is 70 divided by 4, which is 17.25. Okay, 17.25 round up if required. So the worst I can do is 18 hits, right? 17.25. All fractions in this game are rounded up. So the worst I can do is 18. Okay, so 18 against this guy, that's a 9. That's a full result. So the worst I can do is a 9. So this is another auto kill, just like earlier. So flip 9, flips this to another 9, so, and then this thing dies because it's an 8. It's 18, right? It can take 18 points of damage. Okay, all right. So let's see what happens. And the only thing he can do to me is a critical hit. So he'll probably say, AP auto kill or something like that. Okay, so he adds up my factors. He gets 70. APCH. Okay, so he's the only thing he can do is try to hit me critical hit. Okay, so here he rolls 2d10. He rolls a 2d10, and I rolled a 0. Okay, that means I got the worst possible result here, 1/4. But I have 70 guys. 70 guys divided by 4 is 17.25. Round up is 18. Okay, so that destroys this unit completely. And then he rolls a 1. Okay, he rolls a 1, which is, of course, a 1/4 result. He doesn't get the critical hit he needs. Okay, so he doesn't hit me. So, okay, so he's dead. He removes it. Okay, it flips. 9, 18, dead. Okay, so end of log file. This is the end of his log file. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say no, not yet. I'm gonna clean up first. I'm gonna clean up a little bit here before I start the new log file. Okay, so I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna put everything back where I found it. So I'll put this here. Put this. I put this here. Put this here, and I put this here, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't really matter, I guess, at this point in time, where everything was. Okay, well, okay. Now, you'll notice, before I turn the log on, a couple of things I want to show you guys. Well, first of all, let's get rid of the battle axe markers. You'll notice a couple of things. You'll notice now that the azoi, okay, the azoi over Manila, over the enemy headquarters here, Southwest Pacific headquarters, and the Malay headquarters, is now uncontested. It's completely Japanese now. Air superiority, no allied air units there at all. And that's part of the strategy of the Japanese in the early, or the opening part of the war, is to achieve air superiority over the headquarters. Why is that important? Because if you achieve air superiority, or air supremacy, I should say, over a headquarters unit like this, okay, becomes unsupplied. Okay, it's unsupplied because there's unrestricted, uncontested azoi, or air zone of influence, over the hex sides of the headquarters. Normally, a headquarters is a source of supply. It has to find, in this case, Southwest Pacific is a port. It gets supplied. It units get their supply from it, and it itself has to find supply via the ocean into the edges of the board. Okay, the Allied supply, ultimate source of supply is the east end of the board, or the south end of the board. Japanese source supply is always the cities in the main island of Japan. They have to go through a headquarters. Okay, that's an important thing. In order for units to be supplied, they have to go through a headquarters, and they have to be in range of a headquarters. Okay, so by putting an air supremacy umbrella over headquarters, like for MacArthur, Southwest Pacific here in Manila, and the British here in Singapore, what I've done is I've essentially cut those headquarters off. They cannot do anything. The Allied air units or the Allied ground units are unsupplied. They can't be activated. They're just sitting there, and they're punching bags for us. Okay, so that's why I did that. Okay, so we can see that that's what's going on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on logging now. Begin log file in order to start um, my part of the log here. Okay, so begin log file. Okay, so that turns on the log. I'm going to name the log what I usually name as 2-003. Telling to start third third log that we have with the second turn. I'll gain turn 2. Okay, so I'll save that. All right, save that. Okay, all right, so the log is now on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clean up this mess first. I'm going to throw away this card because I've already played that. I played for as the event. Okay, go away. That goes away. What I have to do now is something called PBM, or post-battle movement. Essentially, I have to return, these guys can return from whence they came. But that's not always necessary. Okay, you don't have to return your units to where they came from. You can actually move them to uh, a port, a friendly port that's in range. In this case, 15 for this Mogami. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this guy and move him to marry him with this Japanese naval brigade in Miri. Now, there's actually a reason for that. Okay, by moving my cruiser unit to here, what I'm essentially doing is I'm creating this pair, as it were, and I can move this naval unit along with the cruiser to do an invasion without having to spend what's called amphibious shipping points, and that's a good thing, okay, because that helps me save on shipping points. Here, the Nagaro, instead of going back to Japan, this guy goes instead to Hong Kong, where it will marry or meet up with this half army, 17th Army, so that I can do what's called an opposed landing. I can do a landing here, and I can do a landing at Surabaya, for instance. I can battle this light cruiser and essentially take it out. Okay, so do that. Let's see. And that's it. Let me just move some of the air units that I want. This air unit I'll keep here, And the reason for that, this is the area that covers Singapore, so I need to keep that covered under Azoi. These guys are not. I can move this anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this guy to Bangkok. Okay, instead of moving it back to, I think this fellow. Yeah, I think this fellow starts at Bangkok anyways. It moved back to Bangkok. This fellow started all the way here in Formosa. So what I'm going to do with this guy, I'm going to do something interesting with him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to move into Davao. Okay, and there's a reason for that, and I'll show it to you in the next turn. Hopefully, it'll be something that we can do and show you. Okay, so that's him there. Move that there. Move that there. This guy stays here. I'm going to keep this here. This guy, remember, came from all the way up here. I'm keeping him here to cover this guy. All right, to cover to maintain the air umbrella over Manila. Okay, so this is that. So we're done with the log. I'm gonna shut off the log now because now it's up to him. So his card plate. I'm gonna say your card play. So now the next step is for him to play his card now. Okay, my turn is over. It's his turn now to play to make his to do his card play. So I'm gonna turn off the log and log file. Okay, the log file has been written, it's been saved on my computer, then I'm going to drop it to the Dropbox. He'll get it, and then he will react to it, and then he'll play his card, and then we'll see what goes from there. Okay? All right, so thank you very much for listening, and see you next time.